So I've decided to walk from Waterloo to Hyde Park because I've just got off a train that was completely full of people competing for how much they could cough and sneeze. And so I'm really wanting some fresh air, clear my mind a bit and think about what I'm doing today. It's just one day where I'm joining the Extinction Rebellion protests. I'm quite open-minded to what I'm going to be doing today. Extinction Rebellion are really targeting the fossil fuel industry. It's easy to feel that we can't do anything to help it ourselves. Many of us still drive cars, still part of the problem, using fossil fuels in every aspect of our lives. And we're kind of trapped living within this infrastructure that is dependent on fossil fuels. And unless that changes and we shift dramatically to renewable resources in the next few years, we've got this little window of opportunity. So we're already living in a situation where over half the world's population are living in highly vulnerable areas. In those countries, there's less infrastructure to mitigate the effects of climate change too, so the deaths are going to be much higher than they will be in more developed and wealthy countries. The countries that are causing the problem are going to be less affected in the short term. It's going to reach all of us in the longer term. And we have a lot of police vans along here. On this side we have a lovely little garden. I often hear criticism of Extinction Rebellion, whether it's down to methods, protests, policies or whatever, but I mean they're a growing movement. They are made up of so many different individuals, such a diverse community taking part in Extinction Rebellion. Not that everybody agrees with each other about everything, and sometimes mistakes are made, and big mistakes sometimes, and things that people feel like they don't want to be a part of maybe. But at the same time, huge positive actions are taking place and plenty of stuff that people feel they can get behind, because this is one of the very few movements at the moment that is realistically tackling the climate crisis. I read last week an interview with Noam Chomsky, who I believe is one of the great political commentators of this century. He was describing the Extinction Rebellion as one of the few causes for hope in the world currently, and that says a lot in validation of Extinction Rebellion and actions by Extinction Rebellion. So obviously there's a lot that individuals can do, but when you really look at the reality of trying to decarbonise your life, it is impossible unless the infrastructure is changed. Just every facet of our lives in the West certainly is built on fossil fuels, and an infrastructure that profits and a politics that profits fossil fuel industries. So unless our politicians and our corporations and the whole way that business is conducted in the world is removed from fossil fuel industries, then there is no hope. So I'm at Wellington Arch here, and I think I must be getting near to Hyde Park. There's been quite a few people that I've noticed that look like they're heading that way. I think part of the reason why I'm here today as well is partly to get myself back on track. I've even found myself, much as I always think of myself as totally committed and wanting to make change, it's really easy to just get worn down and overwhelmed and overloaded with just the stuff in your life that you have to deal with anyway. I'm not even saying that mine is a particularly heavy load, but in terms of my own mind recently, it has felt really overloaded and like I can't really think about other stuff that much. Don't really want to get that engaged with other things, whether it's work or global revolution or just even doing art, things that I really want to be doing. I've been feeling a real overload recently and a kind of stuckness of being able to move forward with a lot of these areas. And it's easy to just, become not apathetic, because mentally I'm still caring, but just feeling this kind of almost immobilization of how to move forward, how to take action. I think part of it is needing to disengage a bit more from social media, from some of the less necessary avenues of distraction, and refocus on the things that are most important, the priorities. And the climate crisis is a priority for everyone who is living on this planet, and we have varying capabilities of what we can do and the energy that we have, but in whatever capacity we have, it's something that we all have to be focusing on, because it's going to hit us, or it's going to hit the future generations, however we face it, and that can be to a better or a worse extent of harm. And I am still committed to wanting to reduce that harm to the world, to the creatures of the world, to the children of the world. And that's why I'm coming here today.
People got the power, power to the people, power to the people. People got the power, people got the power.
I'm not under the illusion that coming on a protest for one day is going to do anything much to change anything. But I think what I'm hoping is that it will help to recalibrate, re-energise, re-inspire, reactivate my own mind into focusing on what's important and where I need to be placing the energy that I have in my life.
In dangerous times, hold fast to courage. In dangerous times, hold fast to love and sing and rise above. In dangerous times, hold fast to love. In dangerous times, hold fast to courage. In dangerous times, hold fast to love.
This is a technique that was used by Martin Luther King to very, very good ways, because I have civil rights now off the back of what that happened in America, and also off what the bus boycotts led onto in the Race Relations Act in this country. Everybody is here for a slightly different reason. And what I would like to do is to invite people to come up here and talk about the reason why you are taking part in non-violent civil disobedience. I can give a quick lyric. It's not going to be 2 minutes long. My father is from the island of Grenada. He died not so long ago from COVID. And he gave me a love for the country that he came from. We're called Spicers because the island has nutmeg as one of its biggest productions. It's a tiny speck of an island at the end of the Caribbean line. That country was born through blood, sweat and tears, not only because of indigenous people being murdered by Europeans, the Taino being the largest indigenous community in the West Indies. Then my ancestors were trafficked from Africa and forced into enslavement. And from that, from a fight from the Haiti, that island there, that was the resistance that led to freedom for all of my ancestors and myself to this present day. And so I don't want that island to disappear. I don't want that history to be gone. I don't want their bones to be so far under the ground that no one will ever remember who they were, what we did, and all of our culture. If you think about the West Indies, you're thinking of reggae music, you're thinking of calypso, you're thinking of soca. All of that could be gone in 100 years. And so I stand here, but I'm not going to be complicit with the government. I'm not going to be complicit in ending my relatives' lives and forcing them off their islands. That's why I'm here, and I could cry about it, but I'm not going to. I'm a bit too butch for that. But I'd like to invite someone to come up. Don't be batshit crazy though. Come here for 2 minutes, that's all you got. Don't go on for longer. But what's moved your heart to sit down here? What's moved your heart to make sure that we stand against what happened in COP26? What makes you stand here wanting to fight for the Paris Accord, which was 1.5? So if anyone wants to put their hand up, and I invite you to come here and just give a testimony.
I'm John, and John from Forres in the north of Scotland, and I am a retired history teacher.
Come on, say hello to John!
Thank you, thank you. Well, this is my sign. I am a teacher, and I'm telling them, the government, the world governments, everybody, to tell the truth. To tell the truth about climate, to tell the truth about the ecological crisis, to tell the truth about wealth inequality and the fact that it's getting worse and worse. Not better, but worse. Tell the truth and act. Act with hope. And act with hope now. As a history teacher, I enjoyed being with my students, seeing their interest in the future, trying to teach them that life is about living, about engaging with knowledge, with everything, and thriving. It's not about surviving. It's not about struggling and being in part of a system which says, no, no, life is not about thriving. You've got to struggle. You've got to fight.
Every structure, monument, building is a reminder that I'm separate from the earth. This earth that must be tamed and kept out of my reach. I didn't grow up in nature, but I have a relationship to it because I am part of it. I'm not separate, just like we are not separate. We are one. And we are defending our lives from the tyranny of a system that wants us divided, oppressed, and disempowered. We are not nothing. We are everything. We are nature defending itself. So, when I die, what will my regrets be? What are yours?
The IPCC has recently said in a report that if we burn all of the fossil fuels in the gas, oil and coal fields that are currently in production, we will go above 1.5 degrees. The government response to that has been to authorise 6 new gas and oil fields. The government are committing to killing people in the south and eventually killing us, because global sea level rises will affect places like London, Cardiff, Glasgow, Edinburgh. We won't be free from this. We will be affected. The sea level rises all the way across the globe. The government have been economical with the truth, and they are complicit with the papers who are economical with the truth. We are here to try and get that truth out to all of you. The police standing there, the reporters standing there, the people who are just passing by and listening.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. Extinction. Rebellion. Extinction. Rebellion.
Sit down next to me. I want to remind every rebel here, you are following a strong tradition of non-violent direct action. Be very proud of being here. When we win, this will be looked upon as a turning point for humanity. That's how big this is. That's how big this is. I want to remind people that there's a lot of things said about Extinction Rebellion. We're full of white people, full of like posh gits. That's true, there are some posh gits, there are some white people, it's a majority white country. But there are people of colour here, and we are fighting within Extinction Rebellion to tell our stories to our communities.
So I'm going to be reading out the Declaration of Rebellion. But before I start, I just want to invite everyone to just take a moment to be present in this moment, take a few deep breaths. Just think about why we're here, where do we travel from, where you're standing on the earth supporting you. And just kind of look at one another and just be present in this moment. This is our darkest hour. Humanity finds itself embroiled in an event unprecedented in its history. One which, unless immediately addressed, will catapult us further into destruction of all we hold dear. This nation, its people, our ecosystems, and the future generations to come. The science is clear. We are in the 6th mass extinction event, and we will face catastrophe if we do not act swiftly and robustly. Biodiversity is being annihilated around the world. Our seas are poisoned, acidic and rising. Flooding and desertification will render vast tracts of land uninhabitable and lead to mass migration. Our air is so toxic that the United Kingdom is breaking the law. It harms the unborn whilst causing tens of thousands to die. The breakdown of our climate has begun. There will be more wildfires, unpredictable superstorms, increasing famine, untold drought of food, supplies, and fresh waters will disappear. The ecological crisis that is impacting upon this nation, and indeed this planet, and its wildlife can no longer be ignored. In accordance with these values, the virtues of truth, and the weight of scientific evidence, we declare it in our duty to act on behalf of the security and well-being of our children, our communities, and the future of the planet itself. We, in alignment with our conscience and our reasoning, declare ourselves in rebellion against our government and the corrupt, inept institutions that threaten our future. The willful complicity displayed by our governments has shattered meaningful democracy and cast aside the common interest in favour of short-term gain and private profits. When government and the law fail to provide any assurance of adequate protection, as well as security for its people's well-being and the nation's future, it becomes the right of its citizens to seek redress in order to restore dutiful democracy and to secure the solutions needed to avert catastrophe to protect the future. It becomes not only our right, but it also becomes our sacred duty to rebel. We hereby declare the bonds of social contract to be null and void, which the government has rendered invalid by its continuing failure to act appropriately. We call upon every principled and peaceful citizen to rise with us. We demand to be heard, to apply informed solutions to the ecological crisis, and to create National Assembly by which to initiate the solutions that is needed to change the present cataclysmic course that we're on. We refuse to hand over a dying planet to future generations by failing to act now. We act in peace with ferocious love for the lands in our hearts. We act on behalf of life. Thank you.
It's a rebel declaration, that is.
Changes to come, 'cause the light's just around the corner. Life must go on. What won't kill me will make me stronger. When I'm falling down on my knees, I will rise and try to believe that changes will come, 'cause the light's just around the corner. Changes to come, 'cause the light's just around the corner.
How can you go on like this, knowing what you know now? How can you go on like this, knowing what you know now? How can you go on like this, knowing what you know now? How can you go on like this, knowing what you